Hello, everybody, and welcome to this new episode in which we will add some music and sound effects to our JRPG game. Alright, so in order to play back audio, we obviously need some audio files, right? So what I've done here is in the source modules main client folder, I've created two folders. One is called music and the other one is called sound. So music is simply, a cute little piece that we want to play back once we enter our town. And the other folder here contains a file which is called hit.wav. So every time our hero uses his sword and hits something, then we want to play back this sound. Now you might notice that these are different formats. So this one's MP3 and this one is WAV. So in general, MP3 and OGG, for example, are a little smaller than WAV files. So I think these are preferred files. But you just have to be careful which formats are supported by the browser which you want your game to support. All right. So once we have our media files, next thing I'm going to do is create a new file here under the music folder and call it index.ts. All right. First of all, I'm going to import the sound module from rpg.js. So that goes like this. At rpg.js/client. Next, I'm gonna define how or which file we're gonna use, right? So in this case, we only have one file. In theory, I could add more. Like for example, if I had a separate file for battle music, for example, which I currently don't have, but we might add that later. So whoops. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to reference the file here, and it was called towns.mp3. Oops, mp3, yeah. And there's also another attribute, so I can loop it. All right. So for this now, I'm gonna keep it looped. And one more thing I want to add is I want to export this and call it music. All right. So that's it for creating the actual file. Now we have to add it to the game. And this is actually quite simple. All I have to do is here in this index.ts file, I'm going to add a new attribute and it's called sounds. I'm going to import my music. Now it's probably going to complain that, yeah, so it doesn't know this one yet. So I need to import this one. Import music from /music. All right. Next, I'm gonna have to tell my actual game from the server side to play the music, which is quite simple. So all I'm gonna have to do is I go to server, and then go to maps, and then click on my medieval.ts file. And over here, I'm just gonna add the music by adding sounds. And I'm gonna put in a new array, town. So why is this called town? The simple reason is here in the, where is it? This file here, we created a new key and it called town. So if we wanted to add a new piece of music, for example, for the bell scene, then we should just add it like that and call it bell, right? But we're not going to do that for now. We're going to stick with our town. And I'm going to restart our server. And there you go. We have our music. And the game is still working. All good. Awesome. So how do I actually stop that music? Yeah. So that's that. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some sound effects. Now the thing is, what we not have yet for a game is a possibility for our character to actually hit something, right? So we need to add a so-called action And also we're gonna have to change our sprite sheet a little bit. So we're gonna go ahead and do that first. So here in our game folder, I'm gonna go to modules, main, client, and characters. And you might remember that last time we created or we used this hero sprite sheet, right? So I'm gonna copy this, but I want to keep it in the same folder. Oh shit! So I'm just gonna rename it to hero. I know hero hit, because that's when our main character hits something. I'm gonna open Photoshop. We have to change the sprite set a little bit. Okay, there we go. You don't have to use Photoshop. Basically, you can use pretty much any image processing tool you want. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to use my rectangle tool here. I'm use the white color, or if you want, you can use something else. And only thing here is I'm going to add a sword to our character. So what I'm doing here is going to add like 5 pixel long sword, and I put it into the hand of our character, right? So same thing here, 3, 5, 3, 4, 5. It's a little bit annoying, but I think it's not too bad. Let's see how many more. 3. So we're gonna make our character right-handed. All right, so don't forget that. So he's right, and so this is the right side of the character. So I think, is this the right hand? So this is the left one. So it shouldn't show up on the left side. It should show up on the right side, huh? Oh, it looks like a white dick. Well, actually, it needs to go up one level like that. And then I guess this is the hand of the guy, right? So probably something like that. And then we don't have to edit here because we're seeing the character from back. So I'm going to save it and go back here. And then in our characters folder, you might remember that we create this hero.ts file, right? I'm gonna duplicate this one and just call it hero hit.ts like that. And copy everything in here. I'm just gonna do a couple of changes. So the ID I'm gonna change. I'm gonna call it hero hit, and I'm gonna change the image sprite sheet. So this one's called hero hit. I think the rest I'm gonna leave as it is. This one I need to rename as well. So I'm gonna call it hero hit. I think that's pretty much it. So now that we have created this one, we need to also tell the game when to actually use the sprite sheet. So first of all, in our client folder, I'm gonna need to find the index.ts file, this one. And this is quite simple. I'm just gonna add the hero hit sprite sheet, and I import it as well. Hero hit like that. I didn't find it. Whoopsie. I think I need to copy it. Hero hit and hero hit like that. There you go. Okay, now the game knows that this exists. Next, I'm going to go to my player.ts file. So that's down here in the server folder. I'm going to add a new event. So just like the way I added the onJoinMap event, there's also the onInput event. And there are a couple of parameters that go in here. So we have the player. So that's simply the RPG player, or it's an instant of RPG player. And the data. So this one's actually quite important because this one gives us the information what's actually going on when the player uses a certain action. And what we want is every time I hit the space bar, we want to hit with our sword, right? And the command for the space bar, it's called action, right? So I'm going to use that one. and we want to play the sound, right? So I'm going to call play sound. So we have not created that yet, but I'm going to do that in a second, but I just want to add it here already. And the other one is just showing the animation. So this one is the sprite sheet, which is not the sprite sheet, but the sprite sheet we just created. So hero hit, we're going to use default settings, and we want to replace the graphic. All right, before we go ahead, one more thing we have to add. Actually, we have to change this. So in our hero hit.ts file, we use the default settings, actually the same settings for the textures we use for our hero file, right? We have to modify just a little bit. It's not much of a deal. First of all, I'm going to remove this one because we don't need the standing animation here. And we're just going to make the walking animation the default, right? Like that. And in theory, this should work. So let me build and run this and see if we can make this guy hit something. All right, let's see. And yeah, so when I hit the spacebar, it does probably show the dagger or the sword or whatever. That looks good. So we have music working and we have our animation working when we hit something. Last thing we have to do is add the sound effect when when the character strikes, and we're going to do this pretty much the same way we did when we imported the music. So here in the sounds assets hit folder, we already have the sound effects file. And I'm just going to go ahead and pretty much just copy this file here. So we can just reuse it. Index.ts, paste it in. And we're just going to import this time the hit.web file. We don't want to loop this one, though this is important. And how do we call this one? Maybe just hit. And then I'm going to go into this index.ts file. I'm just going to add it to the game. So hit and import. Oops. Oh, come on. Hit from dot slash sounds. Save it. Actually, you know what? I think we shouldn't call this hit. I think it's way better to call this sounds, because let's say you wanted to add more sounds later, then we would add them here. So this is not specific to one sound. And I just noticed that we have to rename this to head because this is the key name for the sound file. And then we have to rename this to sounds, like that. I think this is way better. All right. So I think that should be it. So remember here in the player.ts, we have this line here, player.playSound hit. So in theory, if I rerun the game, it should now play back the sound. All right, let's see. And yes, every time I hit, it's doing this cute little Super Nintendo sound with the sword. So I think that's it for this time, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe if you're interested in seeing more of these kind of episodes. And yeah, see you next time. Bye.